Hey everybody, welcome to the newest episode of the Travis on Sports podcast. I'm Travis Tyler, and once again it's time to discuss the news from the sports world from the past week. Today is Friday, February 11th, 2022. Today we'll be talking about the final coaching hires in the NFL offseason. The final 3 spots were filled last week. We'll have a brief Super Bowl preview, updates on the MLB Lockout. The NBA trade deadline was yesterday, so we'll talk a little bit about that as well. There was a lot of action this year, and a brief Bracketology update from ESPN and CBS releasing their latest projections during this week. So as I said, the final 3 head coaching openings in the NFL were filled late last week. The Dolphins went and hired 49ers offensive coordinator Mike McDaniel. He's 38 years old, been in the league since 2005. Started as an intern with the Broncos. He's been in San Francisco since 2017. He was the run game coordinator and took over as the official offensive coordinator this year after passing game coordinator Mike LaFleur went with Robert Saleh to be the offensive coordinator for the New York Jets. McDaniel has also coached under Gary Kubiak and Mike Pettin as well, and is another one of those coaches hired from the Washington football team, or Washington Commanders now, I guess, staff that was there under Mike Shanahan. That included, obviously, Kyle Shanahan, the Rams' Sean McVay, a former Tampa head coach, Raheem Morris, who's the defensive coordinator for the Rams this year, and Packers head coach Matt LaFleur, as well as current Lions secondary coach Aubrey Pleasant, who's had a bunch of interviews to become defensive coordinator somewhere over the past few weeks, and probably will be a head coach at some point as well. McDaniel has reportedly already talked to Tua Tagovailoa, and they seem to be on the same page. Saw a video that was McDaniel talking to Tua and telling him that it's McDaniel's job to make him great. So that was promising footage to see. We don't know what's gone on behind the scenes and everything. And with a lackluster offense that just kind of struggled to score points, and a team that's really relied on an opportunistic defense the past few years to get its winning records, it seems like a really good fit for McDaniel there. Especially you got guys like Phillip Lindsay's been an all-pro running back before. Myles Gaskin's a pretty good player. Duke Johnson's been in the league a while with a few teams, so you've seen him become a capable backup. I think they might look to add another running back there, but with what McDaniel was, with what his background is and what he was in charge of in San Francisco and how that offense runs, that's an important group to pay attention to over there. The Houston Texans actually ended up promoting their defensive coordinator, Lovie Smith. Should be a familiar name for most football fans. Kind of a move that came out of left field after several external candidates were discussed nationally as finalists. You had Josh McCown, who had no NFL coaching experience. I think he's coaching in high school somewhere right now. And obviously had Brian Flores listed there. Smith's name was never really mentioned by anybody until there were reports about them negotiating a contract for him to be hired. Clearly has a long history as a coach in the NFL and in college. Most notably, he spent 8 years as the head coach of the Chicago Bears and 2 seasons as the head coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He was also the linebackers coach for Tampa in the late 90s to the beginning of the 2000s, and then in the early 2000s he was the defensive coordinator for the Greatest Show on Turf team with the Rams. His most successful coaching stint definitely came with the Bears. He was fired there after a 10-6 season where they didn't make the playoffs, but it was still a pretty solid season. Most recently, before joining the Texans, he was the head coach at the University of Illinois for 5 seasons. Team had a 17-39 record before being fired after the COVID-shortened 2020 season. Like I said, his most successful run was with the Bears. They went 10-6 in his final season before he was fired, and he took them to a Super Bowl where they lost to the Colts in the 06-07 season. To me, the Illinois tenure is a red flag there. It's a big-name coach in an area that's got some athletic talent, and he had plenty of time to build that team up. 5 years is plenty of time to get your own recruits in there, get your own transfers in there and everything. and they just couldn't compete in the Big Ten for the most part. But in the NFL, he has been an NFL Coach of the Year before. He does have that Super Bowl appearance. He's only 89 and 87 overall, so yes, it's above 500, but it's splitting hairs here, but it's basically 500. And he struggled in Tampa after leaving Chicago. He struggled in the college ranks to build a good team. And the Bears teams that he led in Chicago were much more talented than the current Texans roster. Didn't have all that front office ownership, off the field stuff with like Deshaun Watson and all them and all the uncertainty around them. And it's also not much of a change from David Culley, who was there last year. Yeah, it's more experienced head coach, but why are you making that change after 1 year when the guy you're hiring was already on the staff? Isn't the coaching staff likely to remain largely the same? I'm sure they'll make a few changes. I mean, Tim Kelly is already out as offensive coordinator, I believe. But it's just a questionable move. It's not going to help you with Deshaun Watson if he's even able to get back on the field after all of these legal problems and everything. And it says a lot about what the external candidates from the other teams that they were interviewing think of the current state of your organization. It really doesn't seem like any of them were comfortable enough with what the Texans are doing down there and how they operate, which is another red flag, a huge red flag, really. And I also saw some analysts questioning whether the NFL made them make this hire because of the Flores racism lawsuit and all that. If that's the case, why not just go and hire Flores? He would be a better hire than Lovie Smith. So, I mean, if that was the issue, why not just go there and make the best hire for your team? Saints also promoted an on-staff guy. Defensive coordinator Dennis Allen is replacing the retired Sean Payton. Now, the New Orleans situation is a little different. They talked to Flores, they talked to Aaron Glenn, they talked to Eric Bieniemy. Dennis Allen was the favorite from the beginning to land this job. He had been a head coach with the Oakland Raiders before, back when they were in Oakland. Didn't do very well there, but he's proven to be an elite defensive coordinator wherever he's been. He's got the head coaching experience, and he's definitely had the chance to learn under Sean Payton and figure out where his mistakes have gone wrong and everything. And his defense has improved a lot from year to year in New Orleans over his tenure there. And it allows you to keep what's been a largely successful staff over there intact. In Houston, that staff really hasn't been successful together. I guess they were better than what you expected them to be. But, there's differences in the situation. Although I think New Orleans probably could have made a better hire based on his previous stint in Oakland. But I see where they're coming from with that one. Overall, in the 9 hires, there's only one minority hire that ended up being Lovie Smith. There are 5 first-time head coaches and 4 what I'm calling retread head coaches. There were 4 coaches with previous NFL head coaching experience under their belts. 3 of the coaches were defensive coaches and 6 of them were offensive coaches, which seems to make a lot of sense with where the league is at. I think the best hires to me, Doug Peterson in Jacksonville. Not only is he going to help Trevor Lawrence, but he's been in the league a long time. He's analyzed the game for a long time. He's won a Super Bowl as a coach, and he's coached players to, specifically at the quarterback position, to career years. Mike McDaniel, I like the fit in Miami, like I said, with the running game and what he can do for the offense there. And Kevin O'Connell in Minnesota, another guy who spent a lot of time as a backup quarterback in the league. You see what that Rams offense is doing this year, and he's going to have a better running game in Minnesota with Dalvin Cook. Kirk Cousins is not Matthew Stafford, but he works well enough with those guys. He's got a rapport with Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen. They got good receivers and good tight end there. So there's offensive tools there for him to make that team better. They need to find a way to get that defense back to the level it was a few years ago. The worst hires, I will say, I think Lovie Smith is in there just because it seems so random and it seemed like they were leaning towards other candidates. And again, they're basically the only staff. Yeah, the offensive coordinator was out, but really the only major change to that staff is that you're getting rid of the head coach and promoting one of his coordinators there. And it would kind of make sense. I know Lovie has experience in the league, like I said before, but it would make more sense if they had gotten rid of Culley in the season and had him serve as an interim coach. Now, obviously, you're not going to do that on a first-year head coach. But, I mean, I know it's the offseason right now, but it's almost like you're making Lovie Smith the interim head coach right now. And who knows if that's going to be an opening next offseason again. And if it is, why would candidates go there if you're just cycling through coaches now? And then the other one would be Matt Eberflus with the Bears. Listen, I think he's a good coach, develops good defensive players. I'm not saying he's not worthy of a head coaching opening. I liked him for head coaching openings, but the Chicago fit just isn't there. Chicago already had the defense. What they need is something to develop the offense. They need someone to develop Justin Fields at the NFL level, because that's what the future of their franchise is riding on, and the fit just doesn't make sense there. All right, the Rams and the Bengals will meet in Super Bowl 56 on Sunday night at SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles. The Rams are playing in their second Super Bowl under head coach Sean McVay, and are going to be the second consecutive team to play the Super Bowl at its home stadium. Tampa won the Super Bowl in Tampa last year over the Chiefs. While the Rams struggled late in the season and almost lost out on the NFC West title, the offense has been good this postseason, and the defense, which for the most part had largely digressed from last season, has turned things up a notch in the playoffs. They're putting a lot more pressure on the opposing teams, and Matthew Stafford has finally shown that he can win playoff games, and his combination with Cooper Kupp, the wide receiver, has been lethal all year, and it seems like he's got a good rapport with Tyler Higbee, and things are starting to be a lot easier with Odell Beckham out there. Cincinnati, on the other hand, is the story you didn't see coming. 2 years ago, they had the first overall pick, which goes to the worst team in the league. It's not like a lottery system or anything like some of the other leagues, which I think is good. I think it should go to the worst team in the league, but that's a totally different argument. And they were coaching at the Senior Bowl that year. Then last year, they held the sixth overall pick as the sixth worst team, and many media outlets were speculating about their head coach, Zach Taylor, and his job security. And now they're in their first Super Bowl since 1988. They made great investment with those draft picks. They snagged quarterback Joe Burrow, seems like a generational guy, the first overall pick 2 years ago, and just last offseason selected his former LSU national champion teammate Jamar Chase, who last night won the Rookie of the Year award in the NFL and had a fantastic rookie season. Burrow, injured as a rookie, showed promise. I believe he won the Comeback Player of the Year last night, if I recall correctly. I didn't watch, I just read some stuff on it. And this year he took steps to join the elite group of young quarterbacks that are taking over the league, even with that crappy offensive line that's allowed 12 sacks so far in the playoffs. They have other young talented receivers, Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins, and it's difficult to find a receiving core that compared to that. LA's does come close when you add Kupp, Beckham, Jefferson, and if they had a healthy Robert Woods, it would probably put it over the top, but he's out for the season. The Bengals have also found some young players on defense that have been fantastic, shutting down the run. Logan Wilson, the second-year linebacker, is having a great year. Jesse Bates, the safety, showing why he's going to be a hot commodity when he hits free agency and why he should get the franchise tag from Cincinnati. They've been good on the free agent market. DJ Reader, Trey Hendrickson had 12 sacks this year, I believe, and was fantastic against the Chiefs last week. So was Sam Hubbard, who's another homegrown draft pick of theirs that's finally paying dividends there. Chidobe Awuzie and Eli Apple have been solid at corner. I still think they could improve there, but it's a defense that's better than you thought it was, and they've shown that throughout the playoffs, especially in the second half of the AFC Championship against Kansas City. You also have CJ Uzomah on the offense at tight end, which brings me to our next point. You have these dynamic offenses. Both Tyler Higbee and CJ Uzomah can become factors. They're both playing injured, but the way they complement their offenses is almost perfect, and their play could help determine which team comes out on top here. But the biggest thing to me is probably the play in the trenches with the offensive and the defensive line. I'm going to start with the Los Angeles offensive line against the Bengals defensive line. The Rams have been trying to build up that offensive line that hasn't been great for the past few years. I think they finally things figured out a bit at the tackles, although we don't know how much longer Andrew Whitworth is going to keep playing. He's definitely the veteran leader on that line. They've been better inside than most years, I think, but it's still been the weakest part of their offensive line this year to me. Cincinnati did lose their defensive tackle, Larry Ogunjobi, who was the best defensive tackle on their team for the season in the first round of the playoffs against the Raiders. But like I said, DJ Reader has been playing fantastic. BJ Hill has stepped up next to him. They also have Tyler Shelvin from LSU right behind those guys. He's a pretty good player. He's a rookie, so we don't know how much you'll get from him, but he seems like pretty good depth there. The main threats from the Cincinnati